Hey, what's good, barbecue family? It's your boy Joe Mill here, back like I left something, okay? Been a little bit, but it's more than time to get back to work, shall we? I'm looking for a beautiful experiment today. We're gonna be trying this 24-hour dry salt brine on this beautiful Cowboy ribeye. I got my Weber Kettle 70th anniversary edition already fired up, so let's get right to the work. All right, football's back. Your boy's back. And you know how we're going to get this thing started. It's been a minute since I've been able to cook. Family time, got me a little bit of vacation, but I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. We're going to be starting out for the Cowboy ribeye for this weekend for obvious reasons. We enjoy some of this preseason football. This one here is 2.76 pounds. I'm actually looking forward to this because I've never actually done one that's actually Angus beef. I've had Angus beef before and I always feel like it's got a nice rich flavor, and it's one that I like, especially like on steaks and stuff, because it's really beefy. But this baby looks pretty good, definitely nice and thick. We're getting this thing started the night before. We're gonna be doing a dry salt brine. So basically we're gonna cover this thing with kosher salt, sit it directly on the plate, or on a rack in the refrigerator, uncovered overnight. All of that salt's going to absorb in there, give us some good flavor all the way throughout this meat. I won't have to worry about salting it. However, I will be hitting it with another seasoning in the morning as it comes up to temp and we get this thing on the grill. Fresh out the package. Not too much that I needed to do. Every once in a while you might have some loose fat. I picked a good one, I think, overall. It's got a nice little spinalis on there. Center's pretty solid. I think overall this should be a pretty flavorful one. The other thing, if you start cutting down too much on this last little fat ring, sometimes this will be a lot thicker, so I made sure I try to get one that was a little bit lower cut. But if you get rid of too much of that, then this thing will mess around and fall apart on you. That's where a lot of times you see these things butcher twined a little bit too. So we're going to go from there. Basic kosher salt, we're going all over it, heavy application, and then I'll transfer right over here to my little rack sitting over here in the tray. Last look until you see it in the morning. Don't be afraid to put that salt on there heavy. You can see how thick this baby is. Basically, it's going to draw that moisture out, and then it's going to soak that salt back into the center. We shouldn't have too much drippage, but it's going to sit just like that in the refrigerator overnight. And in the morning, I'll get back with you and show you something else we're going to get on there. So here we are, roughly, I don't know, 31 hours later. The big thing is I want to at least get 24 hours in this salt brine. Normally I've only done it overnight. As you can see, most of that salt has been absorbed back into the meat. For a while there was a little bit of a pool of water on top that you can kind of see, a little salt water that got absorbed back in. The idea is to help us retain a little bit more of that moisture. Obviously giving it some of that salt all the way down. You can see just a little bit of moisture down there, but overall for this big hunk of meat, it is held on. So you got that little bit darker color as to be expected. What I'm finna do is I'm just gonna knock off the rest of this salt that remains, and I'm gonna give this thing a rinse, only because I'm coming over the top with this right here. I've used this rub before. This is that Bearded Butcher's Black. It is a rub that they said has coffee and molasses in there. Really good, gives a great flavor. I love coffee rubs. Overall, I feel like this rub, where are the ingredients at? I feel like this rub for me doesn't have a lot of salt in it. You see the first ingredients in there is cane and brown sugar. And then we go into garlic and onion spices before you get to sea salt, you know, and then basically with the ingredient list, the first things listed is what you have the most of. So not a lot of salt in here one way or another. Love the no MSG and gluten free. So I think this will give a great seasoning, should help me get a great crust on this thing. But we already got the salt taken care of. So let's rinse it, pat it dry. We'll get a little bit of oil on top, and then we'll get our seasoning on here and let it kind of come up. Nice and cleaned up here. Dried it off. Nice and solid piece of meat we got here. I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of general cooking oil. Nothing crazy, just to kind of get it wet all over. I always hit my bone and everything too. Definitely feel like most of the salt was absorbed on the top and bottom of the meat. And if anything, where you noticed the most of the salt was along these fat edges, whereas it wasn't in direct contact with the meat and able to kind of absorb in. Other than that, we coming right over the top, all the way around with a nice solid layer of this Bearded Butcher's Black to get it all covered up. And I'm going to let it sit just like that. And come up to temp. There she is, all dressed up and ready to do on the town. Got that bearded black butchers on there. This baby's gonna hang out for at least another 20-30 minutes. This is a nice big hunk of meat, almost 3 pounds, and as you can see, it is thick as all get out. So we're gonna let this hang out, kind of sweat out, let some of that soak in, and then we'll be taking you out to the pit. And here is our weapon of choice, and you can already see I got this fire screaming over 600 degrees. So here go what I did. Basically went ahead and grabbed both of my fire or charcoal baskets, put them both together. I'm gonna have this center that I'm pretty much gonna be able to sear over. I'm gonna do a little different today. Normally I do a indirect cook, and then I'll kind of come back with the reverse sear and sear on the back end. I want to sear up front. I want to get a beautiful looking color on here and lock in a nice crust. Then I'm about to pour everything into one basket, slide it over to the side, and I'll go ahead and let it cook indirect and finish up till I get to about the temp I want, which is roughly 155-ish. That's where we usually like our steaks here at this house. I know, do it as your own. I know most people in that 125-ish to 140 range, but hold on one sec. Let's get the grill grate on. That's on. I like this big center area here. It's going to allow me to be able to get a nice sear on that big Cowboy ribeye, not have to really worry about repositioning it too much. Like I said, I want to give me a nice crust, and then I'll be able to kind of push one of those off to the side and get that indirect cook going. I'm going to close this up, let that grate get nice and hot, and then I'll bring you back here in about 10 minutes or so and we'll get started. So fire is pretty much ready to go, and as you can see, we have sweat in. This baby been sitting out for a minute. We should definitely be up to room temp. It's getting nice and soft and nice and jiggly, just like you like it. You can see that rub is kind of soaked back into it. You got that nice little covering over the top. This should give us a nice sear all the way around on this steak. So what I'm planning on doing is checking it out. You might be able to get to about 2.5 minutes, but that fire is screaming. It said it was easily over 600 degrees, I'm sure. So I'm gonna definitely check it at about 1 minute. If nothing else, we'll rotate it. I'll try to work on getting a better grill line, and then we'll flip it. We'll also need to get these sides a little bit. Like we said, this baby is nice and thick. And then once I get the color I want, we'll be able to kind of throw it off to the side, rearrange the grill, and then let it go ahead and cook all the way up. As you can see, I've thrown a probe more or less right in the center. That's kind of read more or less right there in the center of this baby. So we'll be able to kind of know exactly where we're at the whole way. So next time you see us, we on the pit. Okay, now as you can see, look at these grates now. Clean as you ever wanted to see. That heat does wonders. Them coals right there are definitely ready to cook on. And woo! Let me get that where I want it. Let me close this up quick and give it this minute. Woo, the benefits of a good grill. There we go, good hot grill. Let me give it a little bit here. That was just 1 minute, so this don't take long when you got that much heat. 1 good minute. I'm gonna give another side, the other side a good minute, hit my sides a little bit, and we'll be ready to set it up for that indirect, and we'll let it finish out all the way. Look at that flame, look at that flame. Like I said, it's probably getting up to a good 600. It's only been closed a little bit, it's at 5. Steak is still only at 69 degrees. It's been about a minute. We're gonna open it up, real time. Woo, whole lot of smoke. And then pretty much we'll get a peek. Grab my tongue, look at that nice sear, no char on there, exactly what I wanted. Bam. What we got on this side. Hey, I want to jump in here real quick, team, and tell you thanks for watching today's video. If you are new to the channel, go to the bottom right corner, subscribe, check out some of the other videos you've missed. And for everybody else that's been here, you know I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to showing you some of the new things coming up on the channel, and can't wait to hear your feedback. Other than that, let's get back to the work. Now I'm back to my original, normal, traditional, easy setup. Now keep in mind, easily I could have did it this way the whole way, which is just one basket over here on the side, indirect. Got a little bit of a sear over there, got my water pan over here, and that's where I'm gonna do my cooking, more or less my traditional indirect style of cooking. I normally probably would have thrown that steak to the side, maybe put it somewhere, tinted it with aluminum foil, but being that we're over here in Arizona with over 100-something degrees, I just got it sitting right over here, and it's still been coming up in temp. As I see, it's already up to 85. Got me a little bit of that char that I wanted. I'm about to sit it over there on that indirect side, and then we're gonna cook from there, right? And I'll come back in here and check it once it gets a little closer to temp, maybe give it a rotation, since it's this side will be a little closer to the heat. But like you said, we're still pumping up a little bit, 87 degrees. This thing will be hanging out for quite a while. So as we can see, I'm down to 134. We're dropping down to about 400 degrees now as we rock it indirect. Baby's looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a flip over, and we're gonna let it come up the rest of the way to temp. But I just want to give you a peek at what we're looking like. Gotta respect this Indirect. It's been smooth and easy, getting a good flavor in. One thing I forgot, when you doing that sear, I forgot to scrape my grapes back off, so I didn't get good contact there in the middle. Didn't get to get my pretty lines on my backside. I'm not too worried about it, but something I can do and do better next time. This is something you can get on to. Look at that bone looking good. All right, I'm at $135. For me, I'm going about another 20 degrees, and I'm gonna let this thing hang out. 155 is gonna do it for me. We down to 300 degrees. Let's take a look at this baby. Man, it smells so good over here. I'm about to go throw this over there on the rack. Here is a look of the finished product. I'm sure you're getting a little bit of my shadow as the sun is blazing out here. Another 105+ degree day out here. Good char. I can already tell this is gonna be tender. I can just tell by the way it looks like it's falling apart right all up in that center, right up in there. I got me a little bit of a clarified butter. I'm just gonna pour right over the top, and we're just gonna lightly tint a little aluminum foil right over there. I just had a little bit, so not too much, but just a little bit to kind of glaze this thing. Let's cover it up, and I'm gonna let this hang out for about 15 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, who knows, and then we'll get into it. All right, so this is sat long enough. Let's get it open. Still looking nice and juicy, and I like the char that I got on there in the beginning. First thing I want to do is we want to just go ahead and cut this right along the bone. If I still had my dog, that would be his. I'm gonna get rid of this little tail, and we're gonna get down to pretty much the meat in the middle. There go that spinalis. It's still stuck on there pretty well, so I'm not even gonna worry about cutting it. What I will do is go ahead and chop this in half. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Nice and juicy. Still got a little heat to it. I can tell it's tender. But let's get some slices here. See what we got. Fan that down. There we go. Still got some good juice in it. Wow. First things first, that salt all the way through with just a little bit of crust on top from that Bearded Butcher's. I am glad I rinsed it off. I wouldn't want it too salty because I came heavy with the crust, but this tastes phenomenal. As you can see, we're running through that first piece. Nice and tender, very juicy. Let me cut up the rest of this. Woo. We got that thing done. I don't even need to tell you, it is hot out here. I'm gonna be dabbing the whole time, so we're gonna make this thing quick. But let me tell you first off, good to have you back, and it's good to be back. It's been way too long, way too much work travel, and had to take a little time to do some vacation with the family, but I'm charged up, I'm ready to go, and it gave me a little time to think. So best believe we're gonna have some nice upcoming ticks on this channel as far as things that's gonna be changing, new things I'm gonna be bringing you, as well as being able to show you something different from a different angle. You know what I mean? With that said, let's talk about this cook. Came out great. You see I have no steak to show. The family has ran through it. That was what, 2.67 pounds of steak? At the end of the day, knocked it out for me, knocked it out for wifey and my little girl. Wifey normally don't even eat that much meat, but that steak right there had everybody coming back for seconds, thirds, until it wasn't no more, okay? So at the end of the day, first off, I loved it, like I already told you. But let's take down the basics, or let's talk about the basics more or less. So got that old 70th anniversary Weber Kettle out. Believe it or not, that's only my second cook on it, outside of actually seasoning it and getting it all unboxed and everything. We did one on the 4th of July, and now we're right back. Football is back. We're trying to kick things off the right way, hence why I went with the Cowboy Ribeye for obvious reasons, for those that's been following along and that know me. I enjoy being able to use that Weber Kettle with all of the different things that it's got in the guts, the way that you can arrange it. It was fun for me to try to sear by putting both of those plates together and being able to sear right off the middle versus doing it indirect and only being on that small side. I tell you what, it easily popped up with one charcoal chimney full I technically had too much charcoal. I was able to have more than I needed. It easily had me over 600 degrees, so you saw how great that sear was. One thing that I did that I'll be looking to do better in the future, when you go to flip to the other side, normally you want to go to another area on your grate that hasn't been touched yet, or make sure you take a second to scrape that grate down in that area and then put the steak down, just so you can get good contact all the way across. It'll help you get some nice, better lines. At the end of the day, does it change much? No, but I'm in the business of also making it pretty, and I'm always looking to get a little bit better. So that is something that I'll be kind of playing with to do a little bit more of later. Afterwards, I was pretty much able to kind of reassemble that thing back up into my traditional indirect style, which I easily could have cooked that the whole way, and just allow it to go ahead and finish up and come up to temp on its own, nice and easy. I like to kind of reversing it, because normally I'll do a reverse sear. Normally I want to let a lot of smoke and flavor get into it, and at the end I'm just trying to hit it with a little bit of color. But being that I was on the charcoal grill, I like that char when you're talking about a good steak, and the flavor that you get from being directly over that fire. And being able to kind of do that from the very beginning, I feel like I was definitely able to get more of that char flavor in there, some of that good char on there, lock in some of those flavors, and then go ahead and let it come up to temp and make sure I had it the way I wanted it to look from the beginning, versus a lot of time when you kind of do it the reverse sear, you know, by the time you get ready to sear, that steak's already almost done, it's pretty gray looking, and then you're just working hard to try to get some nice darkness to it. So it was a good contrast. I think for steaks at least, I enjoy going directly first, get the color I want, get my char the way I want it to be, and then let it sit over there and come on up to temp, which really didn't take too long. I was able to have over an hour on that cook, which I really enjoy, especially being able to slow it down on that indirect, letting it kind of really come on up to temp. That's a big piece of meat. For me personally, I like to go somewhere in between, like medium well. I know the majority of you probably don't like that, probably like more of the medium rare to medium. Definitely do it the way you like it. It's real simple. At the end of the day, it's just numbers. Probe that thing, check it out. One way or another, you'll be happy. Moving right along. Beautiful piece of meat. Really like having that Angus beef. I always feel a much more beefy flavor and a nice, you know, what you want out of a steak. You know, a good piece of meat whenever I'm dealing with Angus. So that was good. Got that from Sam's Club. Couldn't be too mad at that price-wise and everything. My good old-fashioned Bearded Butcher's Black. You know, I got quite a few, as you probably seen some of the other videos where I got to meet these guys. They were super cool. Quite a few Bearded Butcher seasonings. This black is actually my favorite for a steak. It's not very overpowering. It's more like of a brown sugar and coffee type of a rub. So that salt, which was the star of the show by far, is really what sent it over the top. And this right here just locked me in a crust, locked me in a nice flavor on the outside. But instantly, the moment I gave a piece of that steak to wifey, she said, that's the best steak I've ever had. Or at least that I've ever made. I don't know if that's the best steak she's ever had. But that was the best steak that we ever had coming up out this house. The one thing that I will change later was I'm not going to put so much worry and time into salting the bone as well as the sides. At the end of the day, my bone ended up salty. Not that I'm eating it that much, but you know, you get to biting on it or whatever. That was a little more saltier than I like, and definitely, technically, there's no meat, there's no reason that it really needs it. So next time when I do it, I will concentrate the salt to being more or less just in the middle, more or less of the meat. Won't worry so much about the outside edges as well as the bone, and then just allow that to go ahead and soak in there. I really did like the whole 24-hour salt brine as far as the overall process. I love the way that it actually just uptakes into the meat. I definitely feel like it always comes out to be a little bit more juicy. I mean, you saw how much this saturation was naturally on my hands as I was cutting it, the cutting board, so on and so forth. All the way through, you had salt on each piece of the meat. All of it had flavor, all of it had a good taste, and all of it was nice and juicy. So at the end of the day, the salt brine, since I've been doing it, can I tell you that I definitely noticed a huge difference from just doing an overnight one versus doing that one was a little bit over 24 hours? Not really, other than the fact that that salt's really gonna get in there. I was pretty heavy-handed with the salt that I put on. You could definitely lighten that up. That's why I went with the rinse off at the end, especially after doing it for 24 hours versus just like 6 to 12 or something like that. But other than that, man, you can't go wrong. That is the way to do a big piece of meat if you want to make sure you get flavor through and through. With that said, we got another one done. I'm gonna get back out here, but my phone overheating. I'm dripping wet with sweat. Shout out to the family. Everybody in TV land has been watching. My boys over there with Black Smoke Barbecue. I'm gonna catch y'all in less than a week. Peace.